Inspired by his father's success as a small business owner, Brian Paul purchased the Beachfront Inn and Inlet on Florida's Atlantic coast in 2012. After running the family fish market alongside his brother, Brian hoped to transfer his management skills to the hospitality industry, but he doesn't seem to have even the basics of running a hotel covered.
We're on the beach and we don't have towels. What is wrong with this picture?
Brian's policy of hiring his friends to work in the hotel is causing issues, with employees being accused of taking advantage of him and their noisy partying causing complaints.
We have some guests and employees hooting and hollering until the wee hours of the morning.
After hiring close friend Ben as the executive chef at the Inlet Grill, Brian has chosen to step back and stay out of the running of the restaurant. Though reviews of the food are mixed to say the least, and the sous chef seems to be picking up a lot of the slack when Ben goes missing.
Working with Ben, I can't really tell you what he does.
As Gordon arrives at the hotel in Fort Pierce, he thinks it looks like the business has closed down. He is greeted by Liza, the hotel manager, and looks around at the array of items for sale in the entry area. They include an angry-looking gator head and an assortment of varnished driftwood pieces, none of which have ever been sold. Liza explains the t-shirts sell well, but only to employees, who have to buy their own at $12 a pop. Liza tells Gordon that the problem with the restaurant is the noise, with customers demanding refunds and writing online complaints because of loud music and partying directly below the bedrooms. On his way to his room, Ramsay passes a smoker grill which the restaurant chef uses daily to make their chicken wings. Gordon reaches in to find a couple of well-done pieces left behind. Gordon's room is in the Caribbean building, apparently named for the view from the windows. As soon as he walks in, he's hit by an unpleasant musty smell. A quick look around reveals dirt, dust, and neglected furniture. Back outside, Gordon introduces himself to 33-year-old owner Brian, who he can immediately identify thanks to his large name badge, which all employees wear. When Ramsay finds out that the owner's experience isn't in hotels but fresh fish, he at least looks forward to lunch. The server brings Gordon a huge menu, and he asks her about her name tag, which she had to purchase for $8 on her first day. A surprised Gordon turns his attention to the menu. He samples some dry chicken wings and lobster mac and cheese made with the wrong pasta. He finishes with a tuna burger, made with frozen fish, despite the menu's claims of fresh fish. Brian admits that he's run up a little bit of a bill with his brother and has been forced to use frozen fish for the last 4 months, despite the negative feedback it receives. Outside, Brian shows Gordon the kiosk, where guests can buy towels, bags, and volleyballs. Ramsay asks for a beach towel, which sends Brian running to find one, the only one available in the entire hotel. Chef Ramsay checks out the kitchen and observes the dining room as customers sit down for lunch, apparently unaware that the beachfront venue is serving frozen food. Gordon tells some of the diners, who are unimpressed. And when Ramsay checks out the freezer, he finds frozen avocado, which is also freely available fresh in sunny Florida. Along with slimy potato wedges, Gordon finds a rotting bucket of pina colada, which is actually bubbling. Brian explains it's executive chef Ben's responsibility to keep the walk-in clean. Ramsay keeps digging and finds a container of raw chicken wings stored on top of cooked wings ready for the smoker. Those are the wings that Gordon had just enjoyed for lunch. Chef Ben has no idea who is responsible for the dangerous cross-contamination, but he's certain it isn't his fault. Gordon tells Brian he is heading for disaster, and he isn't interested in excuses. Manager James steps in.
I'm gonna go in 86 the wings.
Sort it out quickly.
James offers to clean the walk-in himself, and Gordon tells him it isn't his job. He tells Chef Ramsay that Ben sometimes only shows up 3 days a week, and Brian seems oblivious, or ignores it. James admits he would have fired Ben months ago, but Brian defends his friend, saying he isn't incompetent, he just has a lot on his plate. Gordon is shocked that Brian is happy to run his business that way. In the restaurant, it's time for some music, and it's really loud. Ramsay heads into reception to speak to Liza, who believes Brian's inexperience leads to many of the problems the hotel is facing. It seems the owner needs to decide whether he's running a beach bar, a restaurant, a concert venue, or a hotel. At the moment, he's trying to do it all, badly. Their conversation is interrupted by a call from one of the hotel residents, whose non-smoking room is dusty and smoky, causing her to have an allergic reaction. Gordon takes Brian upstairs to speak to the customer, but en route speaks to another unhappy resident who is having issues with water leaking onto their floor. When they arrive at the customer's room, they discover that the AC unit is pumping thick dust around in the air. Brian assures them that it is cleaned daily, which it obviously isn't. Gordon suggests offering them a drink in the bar while Brian finds an alternative room. Ramsay heads to bed, but thanks to the loud music downstairs, doesn't get a great night's sleep. Next morning, Gordon holds a staff meeting in the hope that Brian will take responsibility for the problems he's seen so far. But that doesn't happen. So Ramsay heads over to the fish market to meet Brian's brother, Eric, who is continuing to fund the hotel venture. Brian tells his younger brother that he is struggling with the business, but Gordon tells him it looks like he's bouncing around having fun at his brother's expense. And Eric is running out of patience. He wants his money back and gives Brian a 2-month time frame to return the $30,000 he owes. Brian tries to negotiate from 8 to 12 weeks, though Gordon doesn't believe that's possible.
Eric, I got you. 8 months.
8 weeks. 8 weeks or you're cut off. That's all there is to it, man.
Chef Ramsay takes Brian for a walk and asks him about his reputation in the local community, which Brian rates a strong 8 out of 10. They meet up with some of his regular customers. He is told that the service is sloppy, and even ordering a drink at the bar can be a problem. Brian assures them that he listens, but admits he doesn't pass the feedback on to his team, so no wonder nothing changes. Next, he hears about raw chicken, which could have made the diner sick, though he admits he will come back as he gets so many free drinks at the bar, paying for 1 in every 5. For the first time, Brian looks genuinely shocked. Then, the owner hears complaints about the Super Bowl party he hosted, which turned into a brawl, and a guest who found dirty sheets on her bed. Brian thanks his ex-customers for the feedback and hugs them goodbye, promising that things are going to change.
It's not a time for high-fiving. I'm fucking embarrassed. What the fuck are you hugging them for?
Gordon tells him he's not taking the hotel's problems seriously, and this isn't a game. Chef Ramsay tells him it's time to step up, and he needs to show up in the morning looking like an owner. Though he isn't fully convinced that Brian is committed to change, Gordon goes ahead with his renovation plans. He transforms 2 bedrooms and creates a beach club in an unused area. When Brian arrives the next morning, a frustrated Gordon is annoyed to see he hasn't understood the instruction to dress like an owner. He tosses away Brian's name badge and sends him home to change. As Brian tries to reassure Gordon that he's ready to be a real boss, Gordon yells at him to put on his seatbelt.
I'll be back.
I'll be back.
I'll be ready.
Brian returns looking more like an owner, and Gordon reveals a new room concept to the staff, who love the change. Gordon still wants to see Brian get a grip on his business, but heads down to the kitchen to prepare for the relaunch. He decides that Ben and his team can't handle such a lengthy menu, so he reduces and simplifies it. Colorful plates include fresh fish, vibrant salads, and perfect pasta, and he's invited the local mayor to sample the new dishes that night. Brian gathers a team before service to prepare them for the evening, but fails to mention their special visitor until Gordon reminds him. As the mayor arrives, Gordon instructs a dithering Brian to find her a seat, and then he instructs him to let the chef know their table number, which he has also forgotten to do. He tells them she's at table 7. Brian stands silently watching his staff at work, but fails to notice that the only table that hasn't been served is the mayor's. When he finally speaks up, he discovers that Chef Ben has sent the mayor's food to table 7 as instructed, but she's actually sitting at table 15. Despite Gordon's best efforts, the restaurant is still a chaotic mess.
It seems like the biggest thing Brian changed was his wardrobe.
As Ben prepares to send out the mayor's salads, Gordon makes him check them, and they are dripping with dressing. Ben asks the sous chef to start again. Gordon is desperate for Brian to take control of his business, and the panicked owner promises to switch out the chef if he doesn't pull it together. Gordon doesn't appear to believe him. Back in the kitchen, Chef Ramsay checks on the mayor's food and is told that it's finally being sent. But his relief is short-lived when he walks through the dining room and notices the mayor's still empty table. Ramsay tells Brian that he's going to get in his car and drive away if the owner doesn't take control of his restaurant. Ben remakes the food. While they wait, Gordon intercepts a plate of chicken leaving the kitchen and asks Brian what's wrong with it. Brian thinks it's raw, except it's not. The server helps him out by correctly spotting it's overcooked and dry. It's the straw that broke the celebrity chef's back. Gordon hands him the plate of blackened chicken salad, shakes his hand, and walks out the door. Brian hovers by the trash, unable to decide what to do with the plate. As he packs to leave, Ramsay is frustrated that Brian is too weak to put Ben in his place, but doesn't feel he can help an owner who is this ineffectual. Despite Gordon's walkout, his advice finally seems to sink in over the coming months. While he missed the deadline to pay his brother back, Brian finally fired executive chef Ben 4 months later and implemented a curfew for the music. Finally, he started to put his customers first. But would it be enough to keep his business alive? The Beachfront Inn episode of Hotel Hell was filmed in October 2015 and went down in history as one of the few times Gordon Ramsay walked out before the end of a transformation. It's only happened a couple times, with perhaps the most famous example being his iconic visit to Amy's Baking Company. He left for very different reasons each time. On one hand, he was provoked by argumentative control freaks, and on the other, he failed to get through to the ineffectual and inexperienced owner. In this episode, we're pretty sure we have identified the exact moment that Gordon realized that even he couldn't help. A picture, or 3, paints 1,000 words. The abrupt end of the episode left viewers with 2 big questions. First, is Brian still hanging around the trash can holding the overcooked chicken salad? And second, did the hungry mayor ever get anything to eat? Well, it turns out that the relaunch dinner, or lack of dinner, may have been the start of a beautiful friendship. It turns out the mayor is a good sport, who headed back to the Beachfront Inn and took photos with Brian to promote her visit and the airing of the episode in July 2016. She sat at table 7, and Brian held onto her table number to make sure there were no mistakes this time. The empty table episode was particularly embarrassing, as the mayor had given the business an award for its renovations just a few months before filming took place. Oops. The local press also covered the upcoming episode, but gave no hint that Gordon had walked out on filming early. But locals who had been in the restaurant as Gordon sat down for lunch had a pretty good idea it might not go well.
It was pretty funny to see him slam his hand on the table and say, "Oh, Jesus." So I don't think he was really pleased with the food.
At the beginning of Gordon's week-long visit to the Beachfront Inn, he seemed relaxed and happy, clearly not anticipating the problems he was going to face. Interactions between the celebrity chef and owner Brian were highlighted and often funny, with viewers particularly enjoying Brian's sprint to get Ramsay a beach towel. And Gordon even took time out on the first night to take in the beautiful Florida sunset. But it wasn't long until the jokey conversations changed to serious discussions, as Gordon's obvious frustration grew. But as viewers noticed, Gordon didn't yell as much as usual in this episode, which tends to happen when he realizes he is wasting his breath. But as Ramsay got increasingly irritated, viewers enjoyed the episode even more. Along with the beach towel incident, Gordon's fury at Brian's attempt to dress like a boss and subsequent dangerous driving were a highlight for many. The Beachfront Inn episode was rated 6.7 out of 10 on IMDb. Brian had reached out to a number of shows to help him improve his business. He was finally approached by Hotel Hell producers, who had come across some negative online reviews about the hotel and restaurant, and there were plenty of those. The hotel received 2.6 out of 5 stars on Yelp. Customers complained of ripped and stained towels, closed beach access, and late-night noise from the bar and nightclub down below. More worryingly, some residents complained about strangers knocking on their doors in the middle of the night. A year after the episode aired, a woman was arrested for attempted murder after a drug deal took place at the hotel. A man in his 30s almost died in one of the bedrooms after injecting fentanyl, which he believed to be heroin, while hanging out with some people at the hotel. And that wasn't the first brush with trouble at the hotel. In 2015, 2 men were seriously injured when a fight outside the hotel turned into a shooting. Brian was quick to point out the incident didn't happen in the hotel and blamed it on an unwelcome and uninvited element. To celebrate their TV appearance, Brian threw a viewing party at the hotel when the episode aired in July 2016. And amazingly, he was perfectly happy with how he was portrayed. He reportedly spent the evening shaking hands and taking photos with new fans. It's a customer feedback session all over again. Following Gordon's visit, reviews seemed to improve for a while. One interesting change was that residents were asked to sign a waiver acknowledging that they were staying at a music venue. That's one way to limit the noise complaints. While Gordon's changes to the bedrooms were simple, and according to a contractor who worked on the job, very cost-effective, they certainly seemed to make a difference and would have been easy to repeat in other rooms. But that doesn't seem to have happened. And before long, standards slipped again, with a heap of one-star reviews mentioning cockroaches and mold. Brian's dress standards seem to have slipped too, with one guest reporting he looked like the valet parking. Thankfully, he did seem to ditch the name badge for good. With the reviews gradually getting worse, it's no surprise that the hotel and restaurant quietly closed its doors in 2019. It's more surprising that it stayed in business 4 years after Gordon's visit. In 2021, the hotel was rebranded as Sunrise Sands Beach Resort and reopened to visitors. The buildings have been given a lick of paint, but the new owners didn't seem to make any significant changes to the outside, though the rooms Gordon didn't touch looked to have been updated. They were still using Ramsay's restyled rooms as a headline image on their TripAdvisor page, though that hasn't helped the rating, which is 2.5 out of 5. In May 2024, the hotel was under new management, and the restaurant closed for renovations. The whole venue has been rebranded as the Beachfront Inn and extensively redecorated, but a couple of the bedrooms still look very familiar. As for Brian and his best friend Ben, we learned at the end of the episode that the owner had finally fired a chef a few months after Gordon's visit. He went on to work at the family business, Pelican Seafood, alongside Brian's generous brother, Eric, which seems like a great move for him. We can tell from his social media that he loves his family and he really loves to fish. He started performing as a singer in April 2016, soon after leaving his role as a chef, and he continues to perform today.
Crazy, she can't help but amaze me.
Sadly, his friendship with Brian seems to be over. While he has over 1,000 friends on Facebook, Brian isn't one of them, though his brother Eric is. We wish him all the best for the future. As for Brian, there is very little about him online. He is still listed as CEO of the Beachfront Inn and Inlet Grill on LinkedIn, and his only recent personal update on Facebook is that he got married. We wish him and his wife every happiness, and we hope he still looks back on his hotel hell experience as a positive one.